So let's get into Module 1, Introduction to Information Security. The objectives here, you'll be able to define information security and its principles, threat actors and their motivations, how attacks occur, the impact of those attacks, and various other information security resources. The state of being free from danger, or those measures to ensure safety. Although, as you increase security, convenience can be decreased. The more secure something is, the less convenient it is to use. If it's directly proportional, the higher the security, the higher convenient, which is not really true. But the higher the convenience, the lower security, and the higher the security, the lower the convenience. So the inversely proportional one is accurate versus the direct. The triad that you will get to know throughout your time as a cybersecurity professional is the CIA triad, and that is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Three of those work together to solve security issues. Another principle is the AAA, that is authentication, authorization, and accounting. Security control employed with an enterprise to protect the CIA include deterrence, preventatives, detectives, compensating, correctives, and directives. What is the difference between cybersecurity and information security? Cybersecurity is a large area, including your devices, the networks, and the programs. Information security is just that data that's stored on those devices. So information security is a part of cybersecurity, but it is not cybersecurity. You can think of cybersecurity like an ogre in that it has layers. So it's an onion. On the outside, you have policies and procedures, followed by people, followed by products, and then you have transmitted, processed, and stored data, all being covered and protected by the CIA triad of confidentiality, integrity, and availability, protecting the information security layers. A threat actor, that's a person who actually performs an attack. Attacker can also be used. Financial crime is one major area, and it gets divided into three categories: individual users, enterprises, or governments. There are multiple examples of threat actors, ranging from an unskilled attacker all the way up to nation-state actors and more. An unskilled attacker, basically somebody who wants to perform attacks but doesn't have the technical knowledge. Perhaps they have the knowledge of where to find tools to do so, and they might have a basic idea of how they work, but they don't know how to make their own tools. Another term you might hear is script kiddie. Shadow IT is bypassing corporate approval for purchases. It might be ethical, but it can weaken security. Organized crime, the mafia, yakuza, anything like that, they will do illegal activities, and they are moving more and more into cyber attacks. And generally speaking, they are looking for financial gain. An insider threat is someone who comes from the inside, as the name implies, your employees, contractors, or business partners. Maybe it's revenge, maybe it's blackmail, maybe it's stealing money. They are hard to recognize. A hacktivist, you can think anonymous, those with the Guy Fawkes masks. They hack for an ideology. There are nation-state actors such as those in China or those here in the NSA in the US, and they are usually intrusion campaigns that take multiple years, have economic, proprietary, and national security interests. These are considered advanced persistent threats that will pull data out over a period of time. One of them is China actually attacking the New York Times with their goal of trying to find people who are leaking information about the government there. Other potential threat actors include competitors, brokers, or cyber terrorists. Threat vectors and attack surfaces. This is the platform that are targets for exploits. They can be mainstream, but they don't have to be. If they are mainstream, it's because they have already been primary targets. They can be found in many or all technology settings and bear the brunt of attacks today. So when you hear people say Linux doesn't get viruses, they're not 100% true, but they're saying that because a lot of people will focus on Windows instead of, say, Linux or Mac because of it being such a large attack surface versus the number of end users who use Linux. Other vectors, say a supply chain, SCADA, networks that move products back and forth. Anything that can get injected in that process is considered a supply chain infection. One issue is sometimes they'll attack open source software. One advantage is when they do attack open source software, it can be removed or edited and fixed relatively quickly. So there are multiple categories of vulnerabilities, which is the state of being exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed. They are software, hardware, misconfigurations, and 0 days. A software vulnerability is a bug in there that causes issues. You may have a malicious update. It may be a bug that they are exploiting and using before a system gets patched. Hardware, looking at hardware with firmware issues, anything that's end of life and not properly supported in that way. Misconfigurations, say you have a firewall set up and you accidentally tell it to allow all traffic in instead of not allowing all traffic in. That could be an example of a misconfiguration. The software for the firewall is programmed correctly, but you have it misconfigured. A 0-day vulnerability is something that can be exploited before anyone even knows it exists. It's called that because there's no warning before it gets leaked, and these are extremely serious. You can check the CVE database and see just how many 0 days there are and how many were released even in the last year and even in the first couple of weeks of this year. Impacts, there are multiple issues such as data impacts. There can be effects such as an availability loss or a financial loss, as well as the reputation of an enterprise. Here are the 4 types of impact. You have data loss, data exfiltration, data breaches, and identity theft. This is why when you see companies that experience a data breach, they offer you identity threat monitoring in case something happens to have your social security number get used in a nefarious manner. That way they can claim that they did what they were supposed to and did their due diligence. What kind of resources do defenders have to ward off attacks? You have frameworks, you have regulations, you have the legislations that created those regulations. There are industry standards, benchmarks, and configuration guides, as well as in other information sources. So the framework, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, has multiple types of frameworks, and they are all broken down into 3 parts: a framework core, an implementation tier, and profiles. The cybersecurity framework functions have the steps of recover, identify, protect, detect, and respond. You start at identify and you work your way around the circle until you get back to recover. A regulation, a law that requires compliance, such as HIPAA, FISMA, FERPA, the Euro regulations, California-specific laws, or state-specific laws. These legislations are enacted by bodies and require that companies comply. If a country passes a law, but then the state passes a more strict law, it makes more sense to follow the strict law that the state passed and apply that across all jurisdictions. Because it's still legal following the law, it's just more strict than elsewhere. A standard. The standard is a combination of your frameworks, rules, guidelines, and characteristics. Benchmarks, minimum requirements, and a guideline to set for software to be resilient. And generally, there are guidelines for vendors and platforms that are users platform specific. An RFC, or request for comment, are white papers that have experts in areas mention and discuss how to help harden up systems. Data feed, databases of cybersecurity incidences. Other cybersecurity data includes vulnerability feeding, and then there are adversary tactics, techniques, and procedures. Databases of threat actors and how they manage their attacks. In summary, we've defined information security and principles. We've identified threat actors and their motivations. We've described how attacks occur and the impact of those attacks, as well as various information security resources available to you. Thanks for listening, and have a good rest of your week.